A dramatic culmination to a month-long manhunt for that Tennessee teacher who allegedly abducted his teenage student. The pair found today after evading authorities for over a month. Tonight, new details on the disturbing steps police say he took to prepare for the trip and how authorities mobilized citizens across the nation to help track them down. Here's ABC's Kana Whitworth.
Imagine this. A 50-year-old high school teacher vanishes with a 15-year-old student. No note, no goodbye, just gone. In March 2017, the small town of Cullica, Tennessee, was rocked when student Elizabeth Thomas disappeared, last seen getting into the car of her former teacher, Tad Cummins. The case wasn't just about a missing teen. It was about trust shattered, boundaries violated, and a community blindsided by betrayal. What followed was a 38-day manhunt that gripped the nation.
We are beyond elated. Words really can't express the feelings that we have.
A family's nightmare finally over.
Their daughter, their sister, is on her way home. A wonderful family that has been through so much.
Their 15-year-old daughter, Elizabeth Thomas, rescued this morning after being allegedly kidnapped nearly 6 weeks ago by her 50-year-old teacher, Tad Cummins.
And we know she's been through a lot of trauma, more trauma than just about any child should ever have to even imagine.
Police acting on a tip they received late last night.
Around 11 o'clock Central last night from an individual in California who indicated he may have encountered Tad Cummins and Elizabeth Thomas, the subjects of an ongoing Amber Alert.
Authorities closing in on an extremely remote area in Northern California.
The caller indicated they have taken up residence in a cabin in a remote area in Cecilville, California within the last week and a half.
Police found the silver Nissan SUV parked near one of these cabins. The same car Cummins was seen fueling the day the two disappeared.
Authorities in Siskiyou County kept this car under surveillance for several hours. And as daylight broke this morning, they were able to take Tad Cummins into custody and safely recover Elizabeth without incident.
Before the abduction, rumors were already swirling about Cummins and Thomas. Students and staff had reported questionable behavior, private conversations, long stares, even a witnessed kiss in the classroom. School administrators investigated and ordered Cummins to stay away from Elizabeth. But instead of stepping back, he doubled down. He convinced her to run away with him. Cummins was a married man, a father figure, and a respected teacher in his community. But behind the professional facade, he had cultivated an inappropriate emotional relationship with a vulnerable teenage girl. Investigators would later call it grooming, a calculated effort to manipulate Elizabeth's trust over time. He preyed on her insecurities. Elizabeth, the youngest of 10 siblings, came from a fractured home environment. According to reports, she was already struggling emotionally before Cummins targeted her. He offered her attention, compliments, and the illusion of safety, something she craved. There were red flags. A student told school officials they saw Cummins and Elizabeth kiss in the classroom. Other teachers expressed concern about the amount of time they spent alone. The school launched an internal investigation in January 2017, and Cummins was suspended. He was ordered to stay away from Elizabeth and the campus altogether. But despite those warnings, Cummins continued contacting her. He used burner phones, secret email accounts, and even convinced Elizabeth to create fake excuses to meet him in private. These weren't the actions of a confused man. They were the moves of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. By the time he picked her up on March 13, 2017, Cummins had already filled his car with supplies, clothes, disguises, cash, and maps. This was a calculated escape, not a spontaneous decision. He told her they were going on an adventure, that they could live a life together far from judgment. Elizabeth, scared and manipulated, went with him. Her face was soon plastered on missing posters and news screens across the country, but by then, the two were already hundreds of miles away, beginning a 38-day journey that would take them across state lines, into hiding, and deep into a nightmare.
Well, Vicki, it's a rainy Friday here in Columbia. However, the wet weather has not dampened spirits of the folks who live here as everyone welcomes home Elizabeth Thomas. The headline of the local paper says it all. Busted. Tad Cummins remains in California facing a slew of charges, while the 15-year-old who accompanied him is now home.
It may be just too emotional for him.
For the past 14 years, Caleb Banks has been a close friend to Elizabeth and her siblings.
I mean, Yeah, they're my second family.
Her whereabouts are unknown to most, but Banks believes she's happy to be back.
She was crying and she was happy at the same time. You know, she, from what we gather, is very relieved.
According to her father's attorney, Jason Watley, Elizabeth is in a safe location with friends and family, and she is resting comfortably. Mental health experts who specialize in trauma are also spending time with Elizabeth, evaluating and treating her.
Her recent events with Tad made her question everything.
Attorney Michael Cox represents Cummins' wife, Jill Cummins. He says she's been overwhelmed with the recent events and thought Cummins would eventually turn himself in.
Her history with Tad led her to believe and hope that Tad was going to do the right thing and turn himself in.
She is thankful, however, that he was taken into custody without incident. Now she'll move forward with their divorce, just as this community can now move forward as well.
I know from representing Jill that the citizens of Murray County have been very supportive of Jill. And it's a close-knit community. And I can tell from being involved in this process that they have overwhelmingly supported the Thomas family. So I think the citizens of Murray County, I think the community will thrive and move forward past this.
Now Elizabeth and her family are being kept secluded while her treatment begins. Now today was the family attorney Jason Watley's first time ever meeting Elizabeth. In a statement, he said, quote, "She's a little girl in every sense of the word. This was the abduction of an impressionable little child." In downtown Columbia, I'm Jonquil Newland, News Channel 5.
What came next was a cross-country manhunt that tested the reach of federal law enforcement and the persistence of a desperate family. Cummins took careful steps to vanish. He altered his appearance, growing out his hair and beard. He disconnected GPS devices from his car, paid only in cash, and avoided interstate highways and major towns. Every move was designed to avoid detection. The pair traveled through Alabama, Mississippi, and Texas. Along the way, Cummins told Elizabeth to pose as his wife. He even introduced her as such when they checked into motels and passed through rural communities. Elizabeth, isolated and terrified, had little choice but to comply. Authorities soon uncovered Cummins' online search history before the abduction. He had researched teen marriage laws in various states, how to change one's identity, and survival techniques. His car was entered into the national database, and a warrant for kidnapping was issued. Back in Tennessee, Elizabeth's family made tearful public appeals. The media coverage expanded nationally. The FBI joined the search. Over 1,500 tips came in, but the leads often went cold. For 38 days, it felt like the pair had simply vanished.
Allow me to tell you some of the specific details of the good news that we're able to share. We received a call to the 1-800-TBI-FIND tip line around 11 o'clock Central last night from an individual in California who indicated he may have encountered Tad Cummins and Elizabeth Thomas, the subjects of an ongoing Amber Alert that's been in place here in the state of Tennessee for the better part of 6 weeks. The caller indicated they have taken up residence in a cabin in a remote area in Cecilville, California, within the last week and a half. In turn, we contacted the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Office in California and learned that they had received the very same information from the very same individual. We obviously wanted to jump on this information quickly and requested assistance from that law enforcement agency. They quickly began their efforts to immediately address the situation, but there were challenges they had to overcome. The area where the pair was reported to be is a very remote, isolated area with no or limited cell phone service. In spite of it all, deputies found the Nissan Rogue that's been at the center of this nearly 6-week search early this morning and were able to confirm through the VIN number on the vehicle that this was in fact the vehicle that's been the subject of this ongoing Amber Alert. Authorities in Siskiyou County kept this car under surveillance for several hours, and as daylight broke this morning, they were able to take Tad Cummins into custody and safely recover Elizabeth without incident.
The break finally came in a remote corner of Northern California, Cecilville, a secluded area in Siskiyou County. With little cell service, few residents, and no public infrastructure, it was the perfect place for someone trying to disappear. A local man who worked as a caretaker for rustic cabins in the area encountered the pair and immediately sensed something was off. The man, whom Cummins claimed was his niece, appeared quiet and anxious. The older man was overly controlling. The caretaker grew suspicious and checked the news after making a trip to town. That's when he recognized Elizabeth's face. The tip was called in, and the FBI coordinated with local law enforcement. On April 20th, 2017, authorities surrounded the cabin where Cummins and Elizabeth had been hiding. The arrest was swift and without incident. Cummins was taken into custody, and Elizabeth was immediately brought to safety. The cabin itself was primitive. No running water, no electricity. Investigators said Cummins had clearly intended to live off the grid for as long as possible, but with limited resources and a growing federal spotlight, it was only a matter of time before his plan unraveled. Elizabeth, while physically unharmed, was deeply shaken. She had been missing for more than 5 weeks. The arrest ended a nightmare for the Thomas family and marked the beginning of a long road to recovery for Elizabeth.
Is it a trip?
It was not a trip. It was like a kidnapping, kind of.
He told you you had to go.
He said if he couldn't have me, he'd kill himself. Anytime he threatened himself, he threatened my family.
Next, we're learning more about the hiding place a teacher from Tennessee is accused of taking his former student while on the run. Take a look, a glimpse inside that secluded California cabin. ABC's Eva Pilgrim with that and the first comments from the victim's brother following their family reunion.
Tonight, the family of the missing Tennessee teen speaking for the first time since being reunited.
We're all excited. It's like just pure joy.
50-year-old Tad Cummins in FBI custody and facing federal charges after allegedly kidnapping Elizabeth Thomas and going on the run for over a month.
What is she like right now?
Well, right now she's, I mean, in ways she's like herself, but in ways she's not. And it's kind of distressing to see her like that. It's troubling.
This as we are getting a look inside the remote California cabin where Elizabeth was finally found.
Food I gave them.
Inside, plywood walls, leftover food sitting on bare floors, along with survival gear, toilet paper, and very little else. No electricity or running water.
Search warrant papers.
These documents left behind by investigators listing some of the items seized as evidence: bedrolls, socks, beer cans. The nationwide search began after Cummins and Thomas disappeared March 13th from Columbia, Tennessee. 2 days later, security video captured them at a Walmart in Oklahoma City. They made their way to Northern California and stayed at a commune, but left after they were not accepted into the group.
There were all kinds of indications of something a little strange going on.
Officials caught up to the pair in that cabin where the caretaker says he saw an Amber Alert poster and called authorities. Surrounded, Cummins surrendered without incident.
Someone kind of showed me a picture and I was like, yeah, that's definitely the guy.
Cummins is expected in federal court on Monday. He's facing a long list of both state and federal charges. Taking a child across state lines alone can carry a 10-year sentence.
After his arrest, Tad Cummins was extradited to Tennessee to face federal charges. He was charged with transporting a minor across state lines for the purpose of engaging in criminal sexual activity, a serious offense under federal law. The case never went to trial. In April 2018, Cummins accepted a plea deal and pleaded guilty to the charges against him. At sentencing, federal prosecutors described Cummins as a predator who abused his position of trust to manipulate and exploit a vulnerable child. During the hearing, Elizabeth's father spoke directly to Cummins. His statement, filled with pain and anger, highlighted the devastating impact the abduction had on their family. He described sleepless nights, shattered trust, and a daughter whose innocence had been stolen. In June 2019, Tad Cummins was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison, followed by a lifetime of supervised release. He was also ordered to register as a sex offender. Though Cummins gave a brief apology in court, many felt it was hollow, too little, too late. His actions left lasting scars on Elizabeth and her family, and the legal outcome, while bringing closure, could never undo the trauma.
Tad Cummins, the former Tennessee teacher who kidnapped a 15-year-old student and disappeared with her for weeks, was just sentenced. Cummins got 20 years in prison after pleading guilty to transporting a minor across state lines for sex and obstructing justice. Meantime, there's big news about Elizabeth Thomas, the student at the center of the drama. She is getting married.
It's a happy ending at last for 17-year-old kidnapping victim Elizabeth Thomas. She's all smiles as her boyfriend drops to one knee to propose. She says yes and passionately kisses her man. Elizabeth is busily planning her wedding to 18-year-old Skylar Durla, and it comes as the teacher who abducted her is sentenced to a 20-year term in federal prison.
Today we got justice for a brave victim who can get on with her life, and the good news is we've got a defendant who's got the next 20 years to think about the consequences of his actions.
2 years ago, America followed every twist after 53-year-old Tennessee health science teacher Tad Cummins convinced then 15-year-old Elizabeth to run away with him. The 39-day hunt came to an end when they were found in a remote hut in Northern California. Last April, Elizabeth fled the courthouse when Cummins pleaded guilty, but yesterday she faced down her tormentor at his sentencing, although she was too traumatized to speak out herself. Reporter Jason Lamb of WTVF in Nashville was there.
This was a very emotional hearing. When it came time for the victim to actually read her statement directly to Tad Cummins, you could see she was overcome with emotion. She was visibly and audibly crying in the courtroom. So that's when the decision was made to have the prosecutor read the statement instead.
In the victim's impact statement read in court yesterday, Elizabeth told Cummins, "What you did to me is unspeakable. You preyed upon a vulnerable girl and robbed her of her childhood. You are the devil." Cummins' wife, Jill, who shared his life for 31 years, told Inside Edition she would never speak with him again.
I won't let him hurt me like that again. I will not let him betray me like that again. I won't give him the opportunity ever again.
And with the trauma of the sentencing behind her, Elizabeth is planning the next chapter of her life, marriage.
The Tad Cummins case wasn't just about a crime. It was about how easily predators can hide in plain sight, in classrooms, behind titles, under the guise of mentorship. Elizabeth Thomas's courage in facing her abuser and the public spotlight has since inspired awareness campaigns for grooming, child protection, and student safety. The story also pushed schools to reconsider how they monitor teacher-student relationships and act on early warning signs. But most importantly, it reminded us that no matter how trusted a figure may be, blind trust can be fatal. If this story shocked you, help us raise awareness. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories with real impact. And let us know in the comments. Do you think this tragedy could have been stopped sooner? Stay aware, stay safe, and always question what hides behind a smile.